On the same ancient plains where Tyranno the T-Rex rules, another giant shapes the story in a quieter, steadier way.
This is the world of the horned titans, the three-horned giants we call Triceratops.
At the border where forest meets open ground, the earth begins to tremble under many synchronized steps. Something enormous is passing by together, not a solitary hunter, but a company of living shields. A herd of Triceratops emerges, each animal armored in bone and muscle, each one a moving fortress. At the front walks Serra, an experienced adult, her frills scarred by old battles, her horns worn but deadly. Her three horns are not merely weapons, they are also signals, a language written in bone and color. With subtle gestures, Serra guides youngsters around obstacles, teaching them where to walk and when to move. Most of their day is spent not in battle, but in the simple, constant work of feeding. Their powerful beaks shear through tough vegetation, turning ancient plants into the fuel that moves all this armor. Inside that skull, rows of teeth act like grinding batteries, replaced again and again as they wear down. No two individuals are exactly the same, but their basic design is unmistakable. A shield and 3 spears carried on 4 sturdy legs.
Younger Triceratops practice running and turning, building the strength and coordination they will one day need to fight or flee.
Even their games prepare them for the language of horns, the duels and displays that define adulthood.
Serra has already survived many seasons, and each scar on her frill is a memory of conflicts won and lost.
This mark may have come from the horn of a rival or the attempt of a predator. Either way, it tells us she has stood her ground.
Not all battles involve meat eaters. Sometimes the most intense contests are between herbivores themselves.
Here, 2 males test strength and courage, competing for status, access to mates, or control of a prime feeding area.
Despite their fearsome weapons, much of the impact is horn against horn, frill against frill, rather than lethal goring.
The rest of the herd maintains a respectful distance, alert but calm, as if this ritual is simply part of herd life.
Their feet carve deep grooves into the earth, impressions that might one day be mistaken for trackways by future scientists.
The structure of their horns and frills suggests an evolutionary balance, strong enough for combat, but shaped to avoid easy self-destruction.
Eventually, one contestant yields, choosing to preserve his body rather than risk a crippling injury.
The winner reinforces his new status, while the loser retreats, still very much alive to try again another season. Serra acknowledges the outcome in her own subtle way, then returns to the business of feeding and watching. In the heat of the day, the herd shifts into a more defensive arrangement, with their most vulnerable kept inside a living wall of horns.
Physical contact reinforces bonds, as young animals seek reassurance in the solid presence of seasoned adults like Serra. While many members of the herd rest, a few remain vigilant, scanning the horizon for any sign of danger.
Far away, a different silhouette patrols the same territory, one we already know well.
Tyranno the T-Rex has noticed the herd, but even for him, these armored giants are not an easy meal. He weighs the risks, knowing that one wrong move against a horned adult could cost him dearly.
Serra senses something at the edge of her world, a presence written in faint, predatory scent. Her eyes cannot see every detail, but experience fills in what distance hides.
She moves into position, making herself large and unmistakably prepared, a silent message aimed at any watching carnivore.
Around her, other adults echo the display, turning the front of the herd into a living barricade of bone. From above, the message is clear. The herd is alert, organized, and ready to fight as one.
For now, the Tyrant King decides that today is not the day to challenge steel horns.
Serra cannot know why the danger fades. only that the tension flowing through the herd begins to ease.
Life resumes its slower rhythm, but the memory of risk remains written in every wary glance.
By midday, the herd reaches water, essential not only for drinking, but also for cooling their vast bodies.
Serra's horns are so long that even the simple act of drinking becomes a carefully choreographed motion. Youngsters learn where it is safe to stand, using the bodies of adults as moving walls against any surprise attack.
Beneath the surface, their weight reshapes the riverbed, creating new channels and pockets for smaller life.
Beyond them, the sky is changing once more, promising another test for both horn and herd.
Seasonal shifts force the herd to travel, leaving richer feeding grounds to reach new patches of vegetation before they are stripped bare.
Each heavy footprint presses moisture deeper underground, sculpting the dry landscape in subtle but lasting ways.
From a distance, a marching herd of Triceratops seems almost like a living cliff of horn and shield.
Serra adjusts her position to shield the youngest from the worst of the dust, an instinctive act of quiet guardianship.
At vantage points like this, they can see new patches of green and judge the distance to the next water source.
From here, Serra's world appears vast and full of choices, yet every path carries its own risks. Soon, the sky hardens into a wall of storm, and heavy bodies that once feared predators.
Rain drums against Serra's frill like fingers on a drum, but she presses forward, step by steady step.
Their weight compresses the soil, creating channels for water to run, shaping how future storms will drain across the land.
Their defensive posture, so effective against carnivores, also helps shield the young. Through it all, Serra's calm determination never truly wavers. She has weathered storms like this before.
When the storm finally passes, steam rises from wet earth, and the herd opens like
Washed by rain and wind, Serra's armor gleams briefly before dust and mud begin to gather once again. Not far away, a special place holds the future of the herd, a nesting ground where generations have returned again and again.
Serra has already raised young here, her scarred frill watching over fragile eggs that once held new lives. Eggshell fragments like these sometimes fossilize, becoming delicate clues to ancient parenting.
In life, the adults form a defensive ring around their most valuable treasure, the next generation.
Youngsters are born with only the beginnings of horns and frill, which will grow and change shape as they mature.
Playfights near the nests are tolerated, but always under the careful gaze of adults who know exactly how far is too far.
Her frill is not just armor. It is also a visible record of age, strength, and survival.
As the young grow, the nesting ground becomes one stop among many, and the herd once more becomes a roving fortress.
Beside Serra, a younger Triceratops is growing into its horns, soon to face its own challenges and choices.
Horns that can one day injure or kill also serve in gentle contact, reinforcing bonds that hold the herd together.
At times, Triceratops must travel farther than usual, crossing parched ground when local plants are stripped away.
For leaders like Serra, endurance is as important as strength. She must keep moving, or risk leaving the weakest behind.
Relief comes in the form of water and fresh growth, rewards for those who survive the dry miles.
Here, the herd can regain weight and strength, turning plants into muscle and horn.
Every move reshapes the micro-world beneath them, mixing nutrients into the water and sediment. Seen from above, Serra's herd becomes one pattern among many, just one thread in a much larger tapestry of life. Yet for those within that herd, Serra is a constant reference point, a familiar shape in a shifting world.
Weather patterns are unpredictable, and the herd must constantly choose between water, shelter, and new feeding grounds.
Serra's broad back and flanks serve as moving cover for smaller bodies that might otherwise be chilled and exhausted.
Again and again, the cycle repeats. Storm and calm, hunger and plenty, threat and safety.
In quiet moments like this, she is simply a warm body in the morning light, breathing in the scents of her home.
They probe the edges of different habitats, exploring which patches of land can support their massive appetites.
Her horns are long, but she has learned precisely how to move them around trees and rocks, like a warrior trained in the length of her own spear.
Youngsters mirror her movements, copying the safe routes and habits that have kept her alive.
Sometimes, the living pass close to the dead, unaware that earlier Triceratops have already been folded into the earth. In time, mineral-rich water may turn these bones to stone, preserving the shape of horns and frill for distant ages.
When we study these bones, we are really trying to see animals like Serra, breathing and moving as she does now.
We imagine flesh over skeleton, skin over bone, and a life of decisions behind each step. Trackways and nest sites tell us that some horned dinosaurs returned to the same places to lay eggs and raise young. Serra steps between nests with practiced care, as if the shape of each hollow is memorized in her muscles. As day fades, the three-horned silhouettes become a living monument to survival in a harsh world. Serra stands like a quiet guardian, her strength expressed not in roaring charges, but in steadfast presence. Her scar is small compared to her whole body, yet it symbolizes every narrow escape and every hard-won victory.
Within this vast stage, the story of one herd might seem small, yet it will echo through the rocks they leave behind.
As darkness falls, horns and frills lower, and the living shields fold inward around the youngest.
Serra eases her massive body down, knowing that even asleep, her position will block the easiest paths to the herd's center. Her eye closes, but the story of her bones is just beginning, written quietly in the sediments beneath her.
Years flow past like wind over the grass, and the herd's paths groove deeper into the memory of the land.
With age, Serra's steps grow slower, but her presence remains central to the herd's sense of order. Experience teaches where the ground is treacherous, knowledge passed on not in words, but in the paths she chooses.
Around her now stand the next generation of leaders, their horns and frills echoing her design. She shares her vantage point, perhaps unknowingly passing on the role of watcher and pathfinder.
Eventually, even the strongest bodies fail, but footprints and bones may outlast the flesh that carried them. Over deep time, mineral-rich waters turn bone into stone, preserving shapes that once walked in sunlight.
Millions of years later, that stone skull returns to daylight, greeted now not by predators, but by curious primates with tools.
Paleontologists gently free the fossil, reading each curve and crack as a line in a very ancient story.
The frill's thickness and texture offer clues to how much force it could withstand, and how it might have grown over a lifetime.
In museums, these bones are assembled into full skeletons, giving us our first real sense of their scale.
From this empty skull, we imagine eyes, skin, and color, and we ask what these horns and frill were truly for. By comparing bones to living animals, we reconstruct Serra's world piece by piece.
Fossils from different individuals show variation, reminding us that, like humans, no two Triceratops were identical.
Artists collaborate with scientists to paint their lives in color, filling in the spaces that bones alone cannot answer.
Through this partnership, Triceratops steps out of stone and back into motion in our minds. We return to Serra, no longer just a skeleton, but a breathing animal once again in the light of her own time.
Her strength lies not only in her horns, but in the herd she moves with. A family that spans generations.
To them, Serra is a living landmark, a reassurance that the world is, for now, as it should be.
Among many giants, Triceratops stands out for its blend of defense, social behavior, and sheer presence. These horns could injure predators, spar rivals, and broadcast her health and maturity across the herd. Looking into her face, we see not a monster, but a powerful herbivore perfectly adapted to a dangerous environment.
From every side, her design tells the same story. Protect the head, protect the neck, and stand your ground when you must. Her choices each day decide which juveniles find shade, which ones learn the safest routes, and which ones grow up to lead.
Protection here is not dramatic, but constant, expressed in 1,000 small gestures over many seasons.
In this late Cretaceous twilight, predators and horned giants share the landscape.
Serra cannot erase the presence of hunters, but she can ensure that her herd is ready whenever they approach. As day fades, her shield becomes a silhouette, a familiar outline against a glowing sky.
From higher up, their conflicts and alliances fold into the larger story of a planet alive with change.
Night after night, the same ritual plays out. Form a wall, shelter the young, and face outward into the darkness.
Only when she is satisfied that danger is distant does Serra truly rest her massive head.
In sleep, her frill becomes a roof, and her body becomes a wall, turning armor into shelter. Here lies the essence of Triceratops: power shared, risk shared, survival shared. At sunrise, horns catch the day's first light, as if reminding the world who holds this patch of ground.
Serra stands once more, as she has countless times before, ready to lead, feed, and defend.
In that steady gaze, we glimpse the patience and resilience needed to live in a world full of teeth.
Their story is not one battle, but many days in a row, each one earned step by heavy step.
Their footprints line up like words in a sentence, writing a moving history we are only beginning to read. When those tracks harden into stone, later eyes will follow them, wondering about the animals that made them.
By aligning fossils and imagination, Serra steps out of rock and into motion once again. In our minds, we can now see her clearly, not a name on a museum label.
Her story is one of courage without cruelty, strength used to protect as much as to fight. Every line on her frill, every curve of horn, reflects millions of years of evolution's careful experiments.
She is both ordinary and extraordinary, a single animal in a herd, and a symbol of all horned dinosaurs.
In bone, we know her as Triceratops. In our hearts, we remember her as Serra, the steel-horned warrior.
From museum halls to animated reconstructions, we keep asking what her world felt like, sounded like, smelled like. Together, Tyrannosaurus and Triceratops define the final chapter of dinosaur dominance, hunter and defender locked in a timeless balance.
In this chapter, we focus on her courage, her patience, and her role as shield-bearer of the Cretaceous.
Elsewhere on these plains, other defenses roll and clank, from tail club to full-body armor, waiting for their own stories to be told.
Serra, unaware of future eyes, simply continues her life, step after step, horn after horn, season after season.
From afar, the herd dissolves into the landscape, yet their bones and footprints will someday stand out sharply in stone.
By studying them, we look not just backward in time, but inward at our. This has been the tale of the steel-horned warrior, the three-horned fighter of the ancient plains.
Remember her not just as bones in a case, but as a living guardian of her herd, shaped by countless days like these. Our journey with Serra ends here, but the age of dinosaurs continues, calling us onward to the next ancient giant.